Welcome to Beyond the Desk Admin Advocates, where we explore what it truly means to be an administrative professional in today's world. I'm Melissa Mahoney, CEO of the International Association of Administrative Professionals.
And I'm Rachel Suman, CXO of IAAP.
This podcast isn't your typical industry talk. We're here to bring you real conversations, real stories, and real solutions.
From AI to self-awareness journeys, we're here to discuss the deep issues that admins face every day. This is Beyond the Desk Admin Advocates.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 3 of Beyond the Desk. We are thrilled that you're here. That means you've been listening, hopefully, for the first 2 episodes, and we are so excited about our topic today. We really want to focus in on growth opportunities for you in your career. We know that the pathway to the administrative profession, number one, the pathway to get to the role isn't super clear. A lot of folks tend to describe their path as I fell into the role, or, I didn't know what this role really was until I got into a position and then found out either I loved it or it actually wasn't for me. We hear those stories all of the time. And then once you get inside the role, it's really not super clear what the pathway is to move forward. So we really want to focus in on that today and talk about specific growth opportunities and hopefully really give you some takeaways for what you can do to take action on how to grow your career within the profession.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the word you used is so important to kind of set the tone for our conversation forward, because a lot of times we hear growth opportunities and we think hierarchical and up, right? Climbing the career ladder. I've never seen this ladder, by the way. I don't know where that came from, but, climbing up the rungs, getting to the top of whatever. And that is not what we are saying. We are saying growth can look like all kinds of different things: forward, out. It could be up, any of those kind of directions that you want to take. And that really is the beauty of the administrative profession, is that there's so many opportunities for growth and specialization and variance. So I loved that word.
And it's not super shocking that we're, putting a positive spin on this, but I do want to call out, it is a huge benefit of the profession that it is so versatile. You can do lots of things within it, but it can also be a real burden and or a barrier for folks trying to come into the profession or trying to grow your career, because it isn't crystal clear. There isn't a pathway. And if you think of other professions and you think about their career pathway, generally there's a pretty specific pathway for them, and whether they choose to walk that path or not, or stay in their current role, there's not this ambiguity around where do I go next if I'm in an administrative profession position. And that's really what we want to try and uncover today, is that number one, we recognize that there is ambiguity there. There's not super, it's not very clear where you take your role if you're looking to grow, because there isn't a clear ladder. And regardless of how we feel about the proverbial ladder, the fact that it doesn't exist inside this profession can be a challenge. It can be a barrier. And so we really do we believe there's a lot of opportunity there if you look beyond the fact that the ladder doesn't exist. So that's really what we want to talk through today, and hopefully give you some tangible takeaways for how you can move or push your career forward.
Absolutely. Including sometimes creating your own opportunities. We'll talk, I think, a little bit about recognizing opportunities when they show up, but sometimes you have to create your own opportunities. You have to determine what growth looks like for you, what next step looks like for you, and then take the bull by the horns, if you'll pardon the idiom, and actually make it happen for yourself. We have lots of stories from the community from people who have in fact done that and said, hey, I see a gap in my organization and here's how I think we should fill it. And here's my role in that, and have been really successful in that, which is also really inspiring and a good motivator for us who are like, I feel stuck. There's space either there or somewhere else.
Spoiler alert, there's going to be a lot of IAAP support here that will connect to getting you unstuck, because I will say that is something else we hear so frequently from our community. It's docking into the resources that IAAP has, or coming to an event or a conference has really unlocked potential inside of folks that they didn't even know existed. Because when you are in that feeling where you're feeling stuck, or you don't see clarity about what the next steps are, we get paralyzed in those moments pretty frequently. And that's one of the things that the community can really do, even without a lot of effort. Just connecting with folks who are doing something different or having a different experience can really shift your mindset. So that's my first plug for getting connected to the IWP community. But we're really going to try and connect this to why attending an event or getting certified or connecting and engaging with the local community of IWP can be really beneficial for your career.
Absolutely.
Growth.
Yeah, because sometimes those stories are what it takes. Those hallway moments, if you will, are the motivation. We had a panel at Summit last year, excuse me, and one of our panelists, her name is Mishuri Adams. Hi, Mishuri, if you're watching, talked about attending a summit. I believe it was 2022 or 2023. I can't recall which, but she talked about that being the catalyst to move her forward. She was not dissatisfied in her role, but she was feeling stuck, wanted to move, feeling settled maybe. And that was the motivator to see an opportunity that presented itself. She talks about handing a mug to somebody and they became her boss. And it was a great move for her. And so those are really, just to tack on to what you were saying, those hallway moments and those experiences and being open to them can be life-changing. And I don't use that word lightly, life-changing.
So the way we've structured this talk today is we have several questions that actually were sort of born from the community. So we felt like that would be a good way to talk through some of these things. So let's start with question number 1.
Question number 1. Many administrative professionals feel there's an invisible ceiling limiting their career progression. What structural barriers exist in organizations that make finding growth opportunities challenging for admins? We could do a whole episode on this question.
I mean, yeah. That is sort of the crux or the root of some of the issues in terms of growth for the profession really exist in this quote unquote ceiling. I think you all know, even with the introduction of chief of staff, which that could be a whole episode in and of itself. And I can't promise you that it won't be in the future. We might be talking specifically about that role. But that technically is another layer or another level for the profession, and it's not crystal clear what that role is, what it does. Is it just a title shift? Are we just retitling EAs who, are currently doing a role? And the answer is that's not the intention of it, but that is happening in a lot of ecosystems and a lot of workplaces. And so it's not quite invisible, truthfully. I know sometimes it feels invisible because we can't touch it, we can't see it. But there are legitimate barriers here. One of them is the perception of the profession. And when we talk about the perception of the profession, we often externalize that. We push that off as something that other people are creating on our behalf and that we have no power, no control. We have no agency around the perception of the profession. And the reality is it's both. It is both internal and external. We are contributing to that perception just as much as folks who have a predetermined idea of what the role is, or an outdated view or a historical view of the role that hasn't evolved as we have evolved. Both of those things exist together and create this perception. And truthfully, you can't necessarily do a whole lot about the external profession from an actionable standpoint. What you do have agency over is you. Really unpacking your own belief system about the role can shift and change how you see those barriers. Number one, it helps you sort of identify, what are the legitimate barriers that you are facing in your workplace? Is it your direct supervisor, your boss, your executive that you're supporting? Is that the most critical barrier to your feeling fulfillment and or growing inside your career? Or is it the structure and system that exists inside your workplace? Does your workplace, have legitimate barriers to administrative professional pay, to how you are treated inside of the ecosystem? Are you separated from other roles and positions? Do you have different access? Is it equitable in your workplace? Do you have the same access to professional development, to evaluation systems and structures, to feedback mechanisms as every other professional in the organization? Which I hope that's true. We're starting to, really hear more that that is becoming more the norm. But we also know that is not true for a lot of folks. There are still a lot of people working inside of, especially corporate structures that are very established. We'll say experienced, seasoned, established, pick your word, have been around for a long time. Those structures have not adapted or evolved as quickly or as well as some of the newer organizations, or organizations that have figured out how to be more nimble. And so if you're working inside of that structure, naming it is sort of step one to figuring out how to overcome it. So yes, it feels invisible, but it's only invisible because we sort of allow it to be invisible. You really need to unpack for yourself. If you're sitting thinking the reason that I feel the way I feel is because of all of the things outside of your control, you've given your agency away. You've given your power away to other people. And I can just say that can be a very paralyzing place to be. And it's next to impossible to move out of that place until you really start to look in the mirror and say, what am I contributing to this? And what am I ignoring? Or what part of this is mine? What part of the barriers have I placed? Do I really know that that's a barrier in my workplace? Or am I making assumptions based on, whatever experiences you've had, which are all valid, but until you really inspect it, you really have to look at it and unpack it. And that will help you uncover what the legitimate barriers are so that you can go to work on those barriers.
I love that you use that word agency. That's actually one of my favorite words, and it's considered a state of action. And that is so important. To your point, there are legitimate barriers, and I don't want to dismiss that or overlook that. And we still have agency over how we show up, what we contribute, where we go. I mean, if it may end up being that you take a deep dive look in this and say, this is not the place for me. And, I don't want to dismiss the experience of having to look for a new job, searching. All of that is serious, and it's possible. That is within your power. And I think there's something else that you said that I really loved around mindset and recognizing our own agency in that. And I kind of equate it to, have you ever been like looking for a car, shopping for a car, and you like find the car that you want, and all of a sudden everywhere you see that car, you never saw those before. Were they on the road? Absolutely, they were on the road, but your mindset and your lens shifted. So I think that's really important for us to remember in this question is there are structural barriers that exist. And if you can shift your mindset, A, to name them, and then B, to see opportunities outside of those structural barriers. I don't want to say more often than not, because I don't know that to be true. I think often there are opportunities that do exist that we may be missing because we're not looking for that car driving by.
Yes. And you really do need to ask yourself what you want. Because, I think often in that moment of feeling stuck, paralyzed, all of the adjectives we could use to describe that feeling, we often aren't thinking about, we're thinking about all the barriers, not thinking about like, what do we really want from this? If we removed all the barriers, that still doesn't answer or solve the problem because it doesn't get you where you want to go. You have to identify where that place is. And yes, inside of our profession, it's not as easy as it is with other professions because there isn't a clear pathway. There's not this is the next step in my marketing career. And eventually I want to be chief marketing officer. But I started as a marketing specialist, or a copywriter or whatever. There's very clear pathways and roles that people aspire to inside of other professions that don't necessarily exist inside of ours in the same way. And that doesn't mean that you can't identify, I want more voice in leadership decisions, or I would like to perform these functions on behalf of my executive, and currently I don't have those responsibilities, or I want to grow to a chief of staff role. I've really examined what that role is intended to be, and I think I can do that. That's what I aspire to do. That's when you can really start to put actionable things behind uncovering the barriers, because uncovering the barriers alone isn't going to equate to action unless you know what you want to achieve.
Absolutely. I love that so much. We are uncoupling, I think, the title from the role and figuring out what you're passionate about, what you're really wanting your career to take, and then searching for that. And then the title will come, right? We talk about chief of staff, and utmost respect for chief of staff. And it feels, I think sometimes it can feel like that's the ring that you're going for, right? Like once that comes, then I'll get the respect, then I'll get the value. And it goes the other way. Demand your respect, demand your value, and then the other pieces will come.
Right. And it doesn't have to be like, that's not the top. Chief of staff is not the top. It might be the top for some folks, but it is not the top for all. Just like our pathways led us to C-suite roles. And I would say time and time again, that's not for everyone. There are lots of people that I talk to on a day-to-day basis who don't want to do the work I'm doing. They really love the work they're doing inside of the administrative role. They're just not feeling as fulfilled as they'd like to be. So there's plenty of opportunity there that doesn't have to look like C-suite. Now, do I think that it's possible for people who are currently working in an administrative role to move into any position you aspire to move into? Yes. I mean, I think that's possible for anyone in any field or profession. You could move from, like, there are probably teachers right now who are aspiring to be something else or do something different. That's true of anyone. We are not limited. We are only limited by our own beliefs and our own, the barriers that we put in our way.
Ooh, truth. Mic drop. Okay, we are not doing well.
Question number 2.
We got this. What strategies work for administrative professionals who want to grow within their role but don't see obvious opportunities in their current organization? We've touched on this already, but I think we can go a little deeper.
And I think we could give some maybe more tangible things. And this is definitely where I'm going to plug IAAP first and foremost. And if it's not IAAP, connect with a network of admins. There are plenty of networks out there. While we obviously think IAAP is the best,
shout out.
And IAAP is unique in that we are a nonprofit, which it does distinguish us. For those of you who don't know a lot about what nonprofit associations do, I will plug that really quickly too. As a nonprofit association, we are mission first. So at the top of everything we do and circling, encompassing everything we do is mission. And our mission is the advancement of the administrative profession. And so every bit of work that we do comes back to alignment to and with that mission. Every decision we make, everything we offer for admins has to align to that mission. And that also means that every dollar we make, because we do need to make profit in order to maintain this work and sustain the work we're doing. Every dollar we make, the profit we earn supports our mission. And in for-profit environment, it's the opposite of that. That's not to say that companies that work in a for-profit model don't have a mission. They all do. They all, have a service they want to provide, or they want to change something on behalf of consumers or for the world. And that mission supports profit. So if you look at the hierarchy of that, it's upside down compared to what nonprofits do. And that does make us completely unique from a lot of other organizations out there who are offering training and development for admins. So I say that just because we believe very strongly that gives us a really unique value proposition in the market, in the market space. So you can come to an IAAP event and conference and know for certain we are providing that service because we believe it is the best thing for the future of the profession, the best thing to support your career development and your growth. It is not about making money. And that's just the fact. That's the reality of, what makes a nonprofit what it is, why it's different. And so whether it is IAAP or you find resources elsewhere, having that network where you're getting connected to the community and you're actually getting training and development and not just skill building. And when I say skill building, I'm talking about like Microsoft Suite training or, AI training would be a very technical skill building. That's great. That's important. And you also need to be building self. So the leadership competencies we talked about in our first episode is a great place to start. Those things combined together provide a really robust or well-rounded way for you to really take action on how to grow, how to navigate growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I agree very strongly with everything you said. And I think another really important piece of what you can do to grow is really take a deep dive into your organization. I think administrative professionals can sometimes get stuck in a lane, whether of their own making or, external factors, can get stuck in a lane that doesn't allow them to see big picture. But you have a very unique view of the organization that really very few, if any, others within your organization have. You do get to see all the bits and pieces and big picture of all of those things. So I really use that to be able to see gaps in process, gaps in work, gaps in, whatever that looks like, where you can kind of see it and say, this would be really great if this department could figure out how to talk to that department better. Or, admins traditionally have a very process brain. It just comes very naturally. Not all, I'm painting with a broad brush, but a lot of us do. And so really utilizing that view to be able to determine where those gaps are and then put together a proposal or a business case for how to solve those. Huge. I mean, I'm sure they're out there. I don't know many executives that would be like, no, thank you. I don't want my business to be more efficient. That does not work. So really use that to be able to, and use lots of data, like don't just say we have this issue, like come with a solution, be willing to implement that solution. And I think floodgates could potentially open from that.
100%. And be open, because it may not look exactly how you've presented it. There really is opportunity for you to really showcase how being open and curious and collaborative, when you take that approach, can support new ideas or new ways to do something that you hadn't even thought of. So the next layer to that is when you present that to either your executive or leadership team or whatever that looks like, that you're prepared and open to experience collaboration in that space. Because yes, admins do have this very unique viewpoint. We talk about being sort of the center of the spoke, wheel spoke, and you don't have everyone else's perspective. You have your own perspective. So being open and really curious in those spaces really can showcase to your leadership, like, hey, there's something here. Like we can not only improve efficiencies and our effectiveness here, and like this is a really collaborative approach to changing how we do business. So you can be the catalyst for that. I think a lot of times we expect that change occurs top down, or that the loudest voice or the strongest person in the room is the person who's going to be the catalyst for change. And in fact, it's generally not that way. True change actually happens at a more grassroots level. And that's where you have the agency to really affect change inside of your organization. So I definitely love that approach too.
Yeah. Yep. I know we're getting short on time. This is a really good one. How can admins increase their visibility with decision makers who influence growth opportunities, especially when admin work is often behind the scenes? Dun, dun, dun.
See answers to questions 1 and 2 and see episode 1 of our podcast. And I really do think embracing leadership competencies and really exploring in yourself, how are you showing up in these spaces? Because sometimes the reaction or response to that is to get maybe demanding or get louder or try to make ourselves taller or appear stronger. But if that doesn't match, confidence that you have within and work that you've done on the inside, it will not be effective. So, you want to stand tall. You want to use your voice. You want to leverage the influence that you have, but you want to do it because you're confident about what you're saying and your value, your worth, and being open and curious in those moments allows you to be present with the folks in the room. So titles disappear. Some of the intimidation that sort of sits in the room between admins and leadership, when you do that self-discovery work, those things are less intrusive for you because you truly are walking in taller, a little bit louder, a little bit stronger, more willing to use your voice. So examining the things that are preventing you from showing up as your best self is step 1.
Absolutely agree. These are not linear by any stretch, but if I would say a step 2, I also think being willing to put your hand up. Is there a project at work that's coming down that you're really excited about that you want to volunteer to lead or be very influential on? Like, figure out opportunities for you to really step up and say, hey, I'd like to be influential in this. I'd like to lead it. I'd like to whatever. If you're not prepared for that, get some training in it. I'm going to shout out our capstone certificate courses, though we have 7, and one of them is project management. Project management comes immediately to mind. There's lots of opportunities to do this, but I think that's a really great opportunity to go in and gain confidence, to your point, doing that self-work. And also sometimes you need that skills training to really kind of mesh with those leadership competencies. And so go get some project management training or whatever training. Technical applications is another great one. They're all great. Meeting and event planning. I'm not going to say all 7. Check out the website. But any of those really can set you up for success in a way that when the opportunity comes or when you recognize an opportunity, whether it's there or not, you can put your hand up and say, I'd love to lead that work. I'd love to take that on. And that is also pretty important when it comes to decision makers and having them see your willingness to step into those spaces.
Yes. And I saved you plugged IWP in your step, but I saved my plug for the last, and to your point, these are not linear steps. We're saying step 1, step 2, step 3, do all of them, and whatever order makes sense for you. But if you're looking for a safe place to practice that skill set, practice using some courage and, really suiting up and maybe trying on different suits, IWP is a safe place for you to practice those skills. We have so many opportunities to lead in the organization, and it's a safe place where you're not going to get fired. This role isn't connected to your livelihood. You don't have a paycheck on the line here. It's a place where you can volunteer in different leadership capacities, different leadership roles based on where you are in your growth journey, and there's accountability baked in here. So you will receive feedback. You will be held accountable for the things that you say you're going to do, the responsibilities that are assigned to you in your volunteer leadership role. But it will happen in a place of compassion and safety and people who really do want to see you succeed. If you ask any of our board members who are sitting in governing roles of organizations, if they saw themselves in those seats and if they connected to the work they're doing today in the moments that they were sitting as an administrative professional, having the same conversations with themselves and fears about the future, if you ask them, would they have seen themselves doing the work they're doing, governing the business of the association or the foundation, they would probably say no. And I know for a fact, I'm speaking on behalf of all of you board members, and I'm sorry, but I know it's true. I know for a fact all of them will attribute their ability to lead at the level they're leading to the work they've done through IAAP. It's also, things that they've done in their workplace, but the catalyst for them was having the safety inside of this association or the foundation to practice those skill sets in a way where it's not connected to job performance. There's not a power dynamic that exists between you and your livelihood. This is a safe space to practice those skill sets. So not only are we inviting you, hopefully you hear we're pushing you. If you've, not thought about a leadership role within IAAP, there are so many different ways to volunteer, so many different ways to get involved, including volunteering to support our annual conference at Summit. That's like one of the sort of dip your toes in the water experience. Now, it's not a dip your toe in the water experience when you get on site and you're supporting the conference and the work we do there, but it's a short-term commitment. It's not something that you're not committing to a whole year. You get an experience of what volunteering looks like at IAAP. So that's a future option if you're like, I'm not ready for like a committee role, or I'm definitely not ready for board service, but I do want to get involved. There's lots of different ways at the local level. Summit, we're always looking for volunteers on site at Summit. So there's just so many ways for you to connect to the community and practice what we're preaching.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a great question to end on too. Clearly we could talk about this for another 5 hours, but we talked about Summit, and I think this dovetails so beautifully. How critical are mentors and sponsors in finding growth opportunities, and how can admins secure these relationships?
I mean, they are integral to progressing in your career. And I also think it's important that we talk about mentorship and how that word and how we use it and experience it has evolved. I think there was a time when mentorship was very clearly someone with experience was mentoring someone who was less experienced. And today that definition is so much wider. There's a lot of nuance there. There are two-way relationships now that are congruent. So there are folks who are experienced, who are learning from folks who, are maybe new to the administrative profession, but have a different skill set, different experience and or background. And so mentorship is not a top-down only experience. It very much is finding people who can support your growth and who are willing and open to have a relationship with you, because it really should be a two-way experience. And I think that's the beautiful part about finding sponsors or mentorship or coaches. Those relationships inside of IAAP are created in a very collaborative way. We promote that. We really don't have a traditional mentorship program. It's very organic, and it allows folks to decide what they need and want from that. So there's that opportunity in IAAP for sure. But inside of your workplace is also the other critical place where I think you should be looking for sponsors and mentors. So I'll kick that one over to you to talk about maybe how folks might be looking for that inside of their organizations.
I think this is such a great, 100% agree. And I think often it's as simple as asking. And that sounds really simple, and it can be very intimidating too. So I say, find people, whether they're an administrative professional in your organization, whether they have a different role, whatever that looks like, find someone that you respect, that you admire, that has the skill sets, the confidence, the competencies that we've talked about in most of our episodes at this point, and say, I really would love to grow in this area. Would you be willing to, meet with me once a week or twice a week? Like, approach them and ask. And I think there's also opportunities. I hear this a lot, and the different roles. I'm so glad you mentioned it, because I think there are people that can be impactful to us that we don't meet with on a regular basis. Some people are in social media that are posting things that are having great impacts. Like, don't discount those. We are specifically talking about one-on-one, group dynamics that's the other thing. I've just digressed, but figure out if a group sponsorship, mentorship opportunity, it doesn't have to be one-on-one. Are there a group of you admins that are in the organization that want to help and support each other? Take the lead, step up, create that group. So, it can look lots of different ways, and IAAP is at the root community. We are based in community. And so if you don't have that organization, if you're an admin of one, if the admins in your organization aren't really feeling it and you have a vision for what you want, come to Summit this year, come to an event, come to IAAP in general, become a member. We've got an online community that is very robust, very supportive, very just there for you. And they see you in a way that a lot of people don't. We hear that from our community. That's like, they just get it because you don't have to explain what you do. They already know. So I digressed from the organizations, but I think opportunities abound. If we could title this, Opportunities Abound is the title. And we really have to be in a place and a position to recognize and accept them.
Which I think is the key. That's how I was going to wrap, which is really for an invitation for you to get really thoughtful about what you want. Because I think in all of these questions, we've identified a critical component here is that you really need to be clear about what it is that you want, what you're hoping to achieve.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us for this episode. I really hope that you listen to episode 4 because we've talked about Summit a couple of times in our episodes. We're going to do sort of a deep dive to really share what Summit is all about in our next episode as we approach our Summit 2025. So stay tuned for episode 4.
Yay! See you all there.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Beyond the Desk Admin Advocates. We hope you enjoyed diving deep into the world of admins with us.
Remember, this podcast isn't just about listening. It's about taking action. Whether it's advocating for yourself in the workplace or supporting your fellow admins, let's continue to elevate this profession together. If you have any thoughts, questions, or topics you'd like us to explore in future episodes, don't hesitate to reach out to us on social media or through our website.
Until next time, keep pushing beyond the desk. And remember, change begins with you. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.